It's Monday, and that so happens to be the day that I like to talk about monsters. I'm Geoff Arbuckle, and this is Monster Mondays presented to you by Film Seizure. And you can catch new episodes of Film Seizure with myself and Jason Oliver on Wednesdays, but Mondays are for me to talk about monster movies. Sometimes a monster isn't a big lizard stomping through a city, or a giant gorilla with a penchant for pretty blondes, or a vampire in an old castle, or an unseen witch in the woods. Sometimes a monster can be all too real and something that can affect anyone at any time. This week's Monster Mondays is about one thing almost every human has an existential fear about: death. More specifically, death of a loved one from the unseen creature known as cancer. I Kill Giants is based on a comic book written by Joe Kelly with art by J.M. Ken Namura. Kelly's a vet of several Marvel and DC comics, but I Kill Giants was something far more personal for him. Published by Image Comics, I Kill Giants is about Barbara Thorson, a huge fantasy nerd who loves Dungeons and Dragons and is a bit of an outsider. She has a snarky personality and sense of humor and lives behind defenses that mostly prevent her from having many friends. Barbara is obsessed with the idea of hunting, fighting, and killing giants. She is almost never seen not preparing in some way by reading books about the fantasy creatures. She knows the various different kinds of giants and what they do to attack towns, people, and often how often they come around. She even knows about the dreaded Titans who haven't been seen since before recorded history. But don't worry, she doesn't really believe that they even exist. Barbara's fantasy world often seeps into the real world around her. She converses with fairies who seem to know a great deal about what's going on with her. She also has to deal with a psychotic bully while also letting her guard down enough to befriend a new girl named Sophia, who just moved to town, as well as open up to the school psychiatrist, Miss Millay. As Miss Millay starts to chip away at what is causing Barbara to verbally lash out at teachers and get into fights with the bully, she begins to realize that things are not good at home. Her oldest sibling is having to support her and her brother, while her father has abandoned them and their mother is dying of late-stage cancer. As Barbara's defenses start to crumble and the closer she gets to being a normal friend to Sophia, and the closer Miss Millay gets to putting all these pieces together in Barbara's situation, things come to a major head. When the bully takes things to the level of wanting to actually kill Barbara, she defends the bully and Sophia from a dreaded Titan that is a mile tall. As the bully and Sophia get to safety, Barbara battles the Titan, who is not there to take her mother from her, but is there for Barbara herself. However, the Titan is not there to kill Barbara, but to ultimately teach her a lesson. In reality, the Titan is an unexpected large nor'easter that struck the coast town they live in. Barbara goes missing, and when Sophia reports that she saw her fall into the water, the search and rescue team is pretty certain that she has died and is lost to sea. Just then, Barbara returns home and spends quality time for the rest of her mother's life, having learned the lesson from the Titan that all things that live will die, and that you have to find enjoyment and pleasure in the living. To deny that is to deny life, and in the end, we're all stronger than we think we are. As Barbara deals with the ultimate loss of her mother, she recognizes her sadness, but also knows that she can get through it without the fear and defiance that she had previously. Kelly wrote the outline of the story while his father was dealing with a debilitating fight against diabetes. It was such a tough battle that his father lost a leg, and the final issue of I Kill Giants came out the same month that the 1-year anniversary of his father's death occurred. And in the afterword, he discusses how the personal story still hit the same main key points, while thanking friends for helping him edit out the more sappy moments and keep the story tight and condensed into 7 regular-sized comics. Ultimately, he told a story that reflected how he was dealing with his own father's illness, but in the terms of how a kid would have to deal with this incredible foe that was here to basically take away a parent. In 2015, a movie was optioned for a 2017 release. So, being that I Kill Giants is something I just spent a big bulk of this episode talking about from a comic standpoint, and one I recommend to just about anyone to read, how does the movie actually hold up? Well, actually exceptionally very well. This movie, while it is extended from the original 7-part comic miniseries, it does so with the proper tone and characterization from the source material. Where the movie deviates, it actually makes sense, or at least not make things as problematic for fans of the book. Probably mostly because Joe Kelly wrote the screenplay himself. For example, I really don't think that Barbara seems quite as angry and irritable in the movie compared to the book, but she does still have her snarky mouth and demeanor. Sophia is from the UK and not just a random new kid in town. We also do get to see more of Barbara's method for fighting the monsters. She counts steps to things. She marks areas with rune symbols. She keeps notes for just about everything as it relates to trapping and luring giants. We're also given more to Miss Mollet's interest in Barbara, too. In addition, we see Barbara's older sister struggles as far as keeping the family together. While technically none of this is, being necessary to the story, it's absolutely welcome here. However, all main and important beats are present, and most definitely dialogue is lifted directly from the source material in every important and adapted scene. Most importantly, we actually see Barbara dealing directly with giants, which doesn't exactly happen in the comics as much, only implied that she'd know what to do if one happened to ever come along. So let's get to my 3 things that I like about 2017's I Kill Giants. First and foremost, I love the setting of this movie. There's something about East Coast beach towns in the off-season that are always gray and kind of lifeless looking. There's something sad and dead, but warm and homey about the land and the houses. The area is gray and foggy, but it fits the mood, right? I mean, this is just a gray and uncertain time for the Thorsons. Existential dread is everywhere. School is no fun, especially when a bully wants to totally murder you. And with Barbara's mother's situation, it all fits so well. You might notice that I often talk about mood and tone set by a movie, particularly in the setting or look of a film. Nothing gets me more in the mood for a monster movie than muted colors, fog, and kind of lifeless towns. I'd actually quite love to live in this town Barbara lives in and hang out on the not so warm and not so sunny beaches. I do also quite like how the giants are handled in this movie too. For one, when Barbara is teaching Sophia about the different kinds of giants, they are shown in an animated sequence with one type kind of melding into the next and so on. We also start to see them in the real world too. The creatures are even more so entangled into Barbara's real world perception. She is haunted by a voice in her house. She's antagonized by a harbinger saying she can't defeat a giant and is only just this little worthless girl. She literally sees giants and tries to track them and trick them and keeps notes on everything. She doesn't see the little fairies like in the comic to deal with how she really feels, but what we do see in the movie is actually quite a bit more dangerous and terrifying. It adds a layer to the movie that heightens the darkness and feels and adds that really scary stuff that Barbara is dealing with. In fact, it makes her seem more alone and desperate to defeat the giant that is threatening to kill everything she holds dear, even more. Finally, the cast is great. It's a fairly small cast, but there are particular parts that need to be nailed. Like, you need to see Barbara's sister Karen struggle with not just her own responsibilities to herself, but also the entire family's needs that have been kind of thrust upon her at a too early of an age. You need Taylor, the bully, to be psychotic and the actual real physical threat of the movie. You need Sophia to be kind and lovable as this girl who just wants to be Barbara's friends. But in the end, Barbara and Miss Mollet need to be pitch perfect. Madison Wolfe's Barbara is perfect. She's this otherwise normal kid who has to hide behind all this fantastical stuff and lose herself in this determination to slay these giants. On the other side of that, you have Zoe Saldana playing Miss Molay perfectly. She's desperate to help Barbara and is constantly getting the door slammed in her face. And I kind of have to say this, but like any school counselor should, she doesn't give up on the kid. It's all very well played. It's literally like watching the comic book come to life. It's marvelous, and everyone in it is just wonderful. To kind of put a bow on this, I Kill Giants is gorgeous and full of wonder. While it is definitely a tearjerker, it also intends to lift someone's feelings too. It's just got this great message about strength and facing fears. It's 100% recommended from me. So that wraps up this week's Monster Mondays. It also wraps up 2019. Thank you for sticking around. Again, I just celebrated 50 episodes a couple of weeks ago. Well, we put a bow on 2019 with episode number 52. I look forward to seeing everybody in 2020. But until next week, don't forget to check out new episodes of Film Seizure every Wednesday and a new installment of Monster Mondays each Monday on filmseizure.com, as well as check out new posts at my website, bmovieenema.com, each and every Friday. Have a happy new year, everybody.